The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Boy, have those words never rang more true than they do right now. Hey, folks, welcome to the program. We've seen how all of this ends before. Do me a favor, raise a finger, share this program right now. I think this is going to be a very important educational program for you. And by the way, if you just look at the image or whatever you see on the album cover, if that's what you want to call it for this particular program, don't think this is a religious, right, sermon. It's not. It's something much more important at the moment. It's history. History. So do me a favor, please like and share and follow. Make sure you're following. Also, make sure you're following me on Locals. I've got a series coming out about this hack of 4chan and all this connectivity to QAnon and how does it connect to what happened in the 2020 election. You're going to want to make sure that you follow that. So please click follow, share, like, everything else. Let me show you some history real quick that I think you might be interested in. Today, historically, another milestone was reached. Gold, a few moments ago, $3,420.70 per ounce. That's a big deal. $3,420.70. I know some of you will see that 420 and go, it's prophetic. Let's look at it historically. The highest price back in history was May 18th, 2024 at $2,426. It got broke in April at the beginning of the month, $3,240. Before that, the highest was $1,921. That was $1,921, September 2011. And here it sits today, $3,420.70 an ounce. I'm telling you, that is monumental. And gold is a good indicator that people are waking up. We're living history. You know it. I know it. And things are shaking up. Speaking of shaking things up, down below in the links, you're going to see the link to jovanlovesgold.com. I do this with my partners at Goldco. I don't know how many times I can tell you this, but remember, we're not out of this war yet. There's still going to be a hell of a fight to save ourselves and our country. And it's not going to be easy. But the system uses our money against us. It is the way it works. It uses our money against us. It is that simple. Period. That simple. So here's what I'm asking you to do is if you have a 401k, IRA, retirement savings account, maybe you just wanted to get into gold and silver, go to jovanlovesgold.com, fill out the information and request your free gold and silver kit today. Doesn't matter if you want to buy a few gold coins, whatever the case may be. You need to have some protection with gold and silver. Goldco is the place to do it. They are the partners to do it, standing behind it. Please go to jovanlovesgold.com, fill out the information and get the free information. And you may get up to $30,000 in free silver just for signing up. If silver floats your boat, go to instantsilver.com/Jovan. Put in your retirement value and see how much you might get. It's worth doing because I'm telling you, when I sit and look at this and everybody was getting excited, remember I started telling you about this when gold was $1,500 an ounce. Went from 1921 to 24.26 to 32.40, and damn if it's not 34.20 today. Now that's a historic rise. Truly, truly is a historic rise. And today we're going to be talking about history. By the way, if this stuff stresses you out, I've got something for you real quick before we get started. The fine folks at CB Distillery have re-extended their 25% off sale. If you're tossing or turning all night, maybe you're feeling edgy during the day, well, you might want to try CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are turning to CBD for relief because it works. 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD. And it's not just sleep. It is not just sleep. I'm telling you, this company, and I put it off forever, folks. This company, it's kind of a miracle. I had mega pain. And it's not just for pain. It's for, sleep or stress or mood, or you can't focus, or pain after exercise or whatever. They even have it for pets. And it's super high quality, clean CBD. But this was what changed me. Right there. The relief stick. It's roll-on CBD. I was an idiot. I did not believe in CBD. I was a bigoted idiot. I didn't believe in CBD because I have huge negative feelings historically to marijuana, where they get CBD from. It's not the THC, by the way, it's just CBD. And that short-sightedness had me suffer so many more years of needless pain. It was ridiculous. And now when I think about it, I mean, come on. Now when I think about it, no freaking wonder, right? They're in bed with the medicine, pharmacology business is making synthetic things. And right there, God had it for us to begin with, all right there. And so this is my go-to right here, the pain stick. If ever get the pain killing me at night, roll over, open this, roll it on, bam. I'm in a good place quick. I'm not talking about high or anything. I'm just talking about the pain goes away and it feels like seconds I go back to sleep. They've got over 2 million satisfied customers, 100% money back guarantee. CB Distillery is the source to trust. So if you're struggling with sleep or stress or other health concern, haven't found relief, make the change like millions have to CBD from CBD Distillery or CB Distillery. For a limited time, you get 25% off your entire purchase. CB Distillery. Use the promo code Jovan, cbdistillery.com. Promo code Jovan, cbdistillery.com. And your state may have regulations on it. They'll tell you when you order. Don't worry, they're great people. They'll service you. Okay, get ready. It's that time of year. We've just got through Easter. We've got to talk about something incredibly serious. Although the imagery will seem like a lesson in religion, that's not it. Don't jump the gun. Yes, I know I'll get thumbs down from idiots out there just because of this. I'm going to ask a favor of you today because this is a sensitive topic. There is so much to learn in today's program. I'm asking you, do not engage with trolls. They're going to be here. Do not engage with the trolls. There is just too much to learn today. Okay? The world's changing. Right now, the world is changing in a phenomenal way. But you're going to see it's up to us and that we have to be proactive. Hang tight. We'll get started this very important program right after this.
This crazy world is telling you your sons can be daughters and your daughters can be your sons. When will the madness stop? Never. So you have to decide, will you comply or defy? They tell us all, you will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. Is this why America's largest food processing plants and food supply plants keep burning down? Do you really think this is a coincidence? Of course not. The system is telling us right to our faces what they have planned for us. You have a choice. Comply or simply defy their plan for us all. Defy the system's plan and execute your own plan. Abundant, safe, secure natural food supply. Introducing the Food Forest Bible. This bestseller by Jovan Hutton Pulitzer is the single most complete, executable, easy-to-follow plan for sustainable, self-managing food production for self-sufficiency and food security. For the first time ever, a coffee table, heirloom quality full color book which unlocks the ancient secrets of creating a food forest. Imagine planting in a way which requires no digging, no pesticides, and creates massive ancient food abundance. No fooling. Food forests are the ancient secret to planning and planting once. And have your own Garden of Eden, which will feed your families for decade after decade. Buck the system. Buck the New World Order and order your very own copy of Jovan Hutton Pulitzer's Food Forest Bible. Learn how to create a sustainable, self-managing, natural food production for self-sufficiency and food security for your family. Side yard, small yard, backyard, backlot, or even lots of acres, the Food Forest Bible works for everyone. Order on Amazon, hardcover, softcover, or ebook. Don't comply. Expertly defy the system.
Warning. The following program has been rated Gilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians, the elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused emotional socialist snowflake crowd? Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema. freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. He's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Hey, folks, welcome to The Crap, Culture, Race, and American Politics, or maybe it's Culture, Race, and American Pontiffs. I don't know. We have seen how this ends before. And yes, you are seeing an image on your screen from Passion of the Christ. A few things. History's been happening right under our nose. In case you haven't paid attention, I showed you earlier the history on gold. Back on May 18th, it was $2,426.39 an ounce. April, at the first of the month, it shot up to $32.40. Before that, 1921 was the high. That was September 2011. Just before I went on air, checking gold price. Gold is at $3,420.70. Gold's one of those things that shows both confidence and fear at the same time. Other things happened while you were sleeping. Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, has resigned. He has stepped down. Yes, that Klaus Schwab, Darth Vader, Darth Null, whatever you want to call him, that Klaus Schwab has stepped down. The announcement is reverberating around the globe. Don't think it changes anything. There are plenty that have been trained to take his position. And you woke up during the early morning hours, you found out that the Pope has died. Pope Francis has died. I don't necessarily think Pope Francis was a great guy. I think he did great damage to the church. I'm not Catholic, right? I do respect the tradition. And I like watching the conclave and the history. And that's what we're going to talk about today is history. That's just those three things I gave you of newsworthy, right? Of newsworthy stuff. Things are changing right underneath our feet. It's like we're standing up on Golgotha and thunderstorms and earthquakes are rolling in. Which is why I'm doing this program. I want to show you an image. I put this up on my Telegram. Few things. I am Jewish. How do I get my Jewish ancestry? Well, aside from my family, right, it comes directly from my mother. My family hid it. My family hid it forever. It was forbidden to talk about. So I grew up as a child being stuffed, form-fitted into everything from Pentecostal church, Church of Christ church, Baptist church, you name it. My parents didn't attend, right? It was kind of a cloaking process. It was a just don't talk about those things in the family, right? On my mother's side, where it comes from, I can understand my mother's side to an extent when so many in the family died or were persecuted, or my great-grandmother dying in a Jewish ghetto in Germany, etc. It became a point of shame. Funny how it is with you genetically, because it's with me genetically as well. You know, think about the kids you gravitate to where you felt most comfortable. And growing up in San Antonio, Texas, I always felt most comfortable in the Jewish homes of my friends. And then when you can finally set yourself free, my family with all its problems, the first place I gravitated towards was Temple. And for the very first time when I went to Temple, I felt at home, right? I felt at home. Now, if you want to look at me literally, and there's variances in it, although I am Jewish, I am a Messianic Jew. And there's even variations in Jews that believe that the person Jesus was the Messiah. We're going to talk about it. But this is a critical lesson. We have seen what's going on before. When you think about all this imagery, and that's what we're going to talk about. We've been here before. One of the things I do, or try to do each year over the Easter holiday, Passover, Pesach, all of it. What I try to do is I try to watch Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. If you have not watched it, today's program might compel you to watch it, but for different reasons than you might imagine. This was a big deal in movie makingdom, and this is when they started ostracizing Mel Gibson because Hollywood wouldn't make it. Hollywood wouldn't do it. So Mel Gibson reached into his own pocket and did it. Let me show you the original long theatrical release that came out for this movie. Way, most people don't realize when you see that, you know, Icon Entertainment. Most people don't realize that's Mel Gibson's production company. So when you see Icon Entertainment, it is a Mel Gibson production. I'm so sorry, my sound. Sorry about that, guys. I'll go back. I'm one, I want you to understand, damn mute button. I want you to understand today's program is not about your faith. This is not about your religion. Not at all. It's not even a religion or faith lesson. This is extremely important. So I'm asking you, don't think though. But what you need to understand is, even if you're not a movie going person, some people say I'm not a movie going person. You need to watch The Passion of the Christ, especially when you understand what we've been through over the last 4 to 8 to 12 years. You need to watch Passion of the Christ. That's what we're talking about. If you can set aside theology and just watch, you will find something very interesting. So you can find it on any of the services. It's absolutely free. The movie is in Aramaic, so it's authentic. You can see the subtitles. It will walk you through it, okay? But I want to let you know, you need to watch it. And that's what I'm covering today. Because I'm going to draw some analogies that people may not realize what we're facing, what we're going through right now. I'm telling you, you can be an atheist when you watch this and you connect it with what I'm sharing with you today. Chills are going to run down your spine. You are going to be moved beyond belief. It is going to shake you to your core. And even though it's about religion, you're going to go, holy shit, I never knew. Okay? Period. So just put this in the back of your mind. I'm asking you, if you want to do some homework to understand what's going on right now in our days, you need to watch The Passion of the Christ. Now, a few things. Let me tell you what spurred me. In my family, it was forbidden to talk about that my sisters and I were Jewish. Not my father. Not anything. Not my father. Not my American family. But remember, I grew up with my American family, not my European family. I was cleaved from my mother when I was 16 months old. So I only knew what I knew, but I knew something was wrong. And then as I got older and became an adult, and for the very first time I walked in a temple, I'm telling you, I was home. It was like, holy smokes. I knew inherently when I was a kid, right? But it just wasn't allowed to be talked about. It carried on into my adulthood as well, because I wasn't raised as a practicing Jew, but every time I could get over to my Jewish friend's house, I was there. Now, I posted this image on my Telegram. And like lickety split, right? Bam, I got a thumbs down. And as I'm watching it in rapid succession, I got 30 thumbs down. And I'm going, what the frick? And I went over and I posted it on my Twitter. And I watched it. And of course, right now, I've already got a thumbs down just mentioning Judaism, right? But this image is why I'm discussing this today. Because most people, and you need to understand this, I want to position this for you if I could. We just went through the Easter holiday, okay? And you probably, celebrated with your family and friends. And I hope you had some incredibly wonderful food and wonderful times. I was lucky enough to be with family, right? I was lucky enough to be able to get to the family farm. Deviled eggs that come from the chickens on the farm, and get out with the farm dogs and walk, and even bathed in the river. But there's a very important lesson that we need to understand what's going on, especially when you realize, as I marked at the top of the show, gold has gone through the roof. Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Foundation, or economic, whatever you call it, resigned. And the Pope has died. So I post this image, and I get all kinds of thumbs down. I'm trying to go, what the hell? And so I realize a bit that some people just don't know some simple history. Now, I'm going to go I'm just going to go very, very quick through this, because we're going to you're going to discover that history is repeating itself. But most people neglect to think, if you were looking at the Last Supper as it's depicted, you'll see it in the Passion of the Christ, which I recommend you watch, that people forget that this fellow Jesus, his name is not Jesus Christ, it's Jesus the Christ, was a Jew. The disciples were Jews, not Christians, Jews. Nobody's trying to proselytize you here at all. I want to put something in context. We're Jews. But an interesting thing happened to this individual. And it's come down to history as the crucifixion of the Christ. Right? And again, I don't want to make this about the Bible. I don't want to make this about anything. I don't want to take stabs at people. I don't want to throw jokes at people or laughs or ha-has or whatever. Pay attention. Just sober down and focus this. Let's just think of it just for a moment. You're talking about an event 2,025 years ago. $2,025 years ago. That's still as deeply ingrained today as then. Now, first, I'm going to do one quick slide on in Jesus's time, and then we'll get to the lesson of how because this is about today. Look, you're looking at Black Lives Matter. You're looking at Antifa. You're looking at trans. That's where I'm headed. So don't get too far from this, okay? This is not a sermon. This is a history lesson. But if we were just to look at why this fellow Jesus could go out and command crowds, we're talking crowds of thousands, in a time when it was horribly inconvenient for crowds of thousands together, right? Just a few cursory notes when you think about the history standpoint of this fellow. Now, Jesus, when it comes to history, is the only person in history who was pre-announced starting 1,000 years before he was born. Over time, over religions, over countries, over races, there were 18 different prophets between the 10th and the 4th centuries BC that predicted his coming birth, his life, his death. Hundreds of years later, the details of Christ's coming birth, life, betrayal, and the manner of death actually validated those prophecies in surprisingly accurate, minute detail. 1,000 years before Christ, David prophetically wrote about the crucifixion of Christ at a time when crucifixion was unknown as a means of execution. Now, this is why I'm just giving, these are some historic facts. This is not religion. If you're interested in the messianic prophecies, the things that were foretold that event came from, you should consider seeing if you can find a copy of the old book called The Messianic Prophecies of the Bible by a fellow by the name of Herbert Lockyer. Okay? And so, as much as people want to hijack it to their topics, I want to keep you focused on this topic because it's not a debate I'm having with you, it's a history lesson. And so, when you really look at all this information, okay, you're going, wow. Now, it's through that lens, not today's lens, through that lens, that you can understand why this person became the most talked about person of all time and could have thousands and thousands and thousands gathered no matter where he went. Okay? And so I'm giving you the historical filter of why this guy was a rock star. And yes, this is a heavily intertwined one. But I'm giving you the historical filter of why this fellow was a rock star. Why he was hated and loved at the same time. Why he terrified the system. Why he empowered the people at the same time. But for those particular, if you want to really, right, if you really want to dive deep into the messianic part of this, there is a book, The Messianic Prophecies of the Bible, a compendium of all the prophecies in Scripture concerning the promised Messiah. Okay, so here we are. The filter that we're looking at this through is the crucifixion of Jesus. And why this is so radically important is now I'm going to basically take you to the history part of it. Where we set today, and specifically where we've set for years now, right, is we're dealing with a very unique phenomenon deeply in American history. We know that speech is protected, but it is not welcome. This is where I'm headed with this. I want you to understand for a moment. Our nation's foundation is on free speech. We are a Judeo-Christian nation. Without Jesus, without David, or the house of David, and David's full commitment to Yahweh, what you know as your Christian religion would not exist. But we're living at the same time, we're living in a time of prophecy. Now, right now, speech is protected, but speech is not welcome. You know it, and I know it. We go through it right here on socialist media nonstop. But the difference between the time is what I'm going to discuss, because the crowd has not changed. The crowd has not changed. Only the tools have. Only the tools have. Now, many people right, believe that they understand history. And I'll give you an example, like Teddy Legend. Teddy, I'm going to provide you with a link because I always like to take the unintelligent mind historically that's ignorant on history and help them understand history. Because see, that's what we're going to do. In order to understand what happened then, you have to understand now. And Teddy basically says, hey, Jovan, your ancestors killed our Savior. Okay. Now, if you're talking about ancestors and faith, meaning Judaism, you're right. But there was something different about those Jews too, which is why you need to understand, which is why all this knee-jerk anti-Semitic crap has been put into play. Remember, if they can convince you to cut your son's penis off to make him a girl, or cut your daughter's boobies off to make them a guy, then you understand what they're really doing is convincing you they can play God. You might see it for a trans movement. And yes, nobody's responding to trolls except me. And I decide it can be a teaching moment, right? But yeah, don't respond to the trolls. I invited them on. We'll see, right? We'll see if the troll will come on, which is fine. Okay, which is totally fine. And we'll discuss this because you're allowed to have differences. 100% allowed to have differences. And it's okay. And it's healthy. And it's healthy for people with differences to dialogue. So I want you to understand kind of what's going on at the moment is you see this culture of men are bad, men are evil, defund the police, et cetera, right? You have to understand all of that is connected to today. All of it is connected through what we're going through metamorphically as a nation, a Judeo-Christian nation, right? Right? Because Teddy can say, hey, your ancestors killed our Savior. And I can say, hey, you have a Savior because you are a Christian. And it happened because this fellow was killed. Are you saying you would rather have him not killed? Then what would you be? Muslim? So you can see how really loose, ill-thought comments like this, when you absolutely need for this person to have been killed. Think about it. You actually needed for this person to be sacrificed. To be what you claim to be, to have what you claim to claim, which is your Savior. It's all required. But in this interesting thing with anti-Semitic comments is that's key to what's going on right now. Because see, you got to understand, if they can convince you that boys can spontaneously become girls, or girls can spontaneously become boys, or that man can create life and does not need good, or that the Jews killed Christ, then you understand, even today, 2025 years later, we are still in this horrible cleaving. But you can't step back and realize if anything was different, you would not have the faith you have. So with that, I want to give you a little bit of a juxtaposition going on so you understand actually what we're dealing with. Number one, if you look at this through the history of the filter, I think we can all agree speech is protected. We know it by law, but it is not welcome. The other part of it is in our time right now, the crowd's still the freaking same. The crowd is the same. Only the tools have changed. Today, the names have changed, but the crowd has not changed. I want you just to think about that for a minute. Today, the names have changed, but the crowd has not changed. I can prove it to you. In Jesus's time, the issue was Barabbas or Jesus. Open your mind. Open your mind. Okay? Open your mind. And this is why I've asked you, really should take the time to watch The Passion of the Christ, because you will see an interesting phenomenon. During Jesus's time, when Jesus is put forth in front of the Philistines and everything, meaning the ruling Jewish class, you tend to think of it as religion. It actually had nothing to do with religion. Nothing. Let me go back in history a little bit. Because we know this happened. We know he got crucified. Right? It changed every one of our lives listening, doesn't matter where you are. But here's what I want you to understand for a moment. He was walked into a city on the back of an ass, and the people were laying palm fronds at his feet, welcoming him as a great hero. They didn't even want his feet to touch the dirt. And why? Why were they welcoming him as a great hero? Because he was a person that was speaking the truth plainly and was for the people. Period. Now, I want you to remember a few things during that time. Okay? A few things. The Sabbath, men went to temple. We're in Jesus's time, right? Men went to temple to learn because it was their job to teach it in their home. That was how it went, right? The men went to temple to learn. The learning of the temple was taken home by the men, and the men taught it to their families. That was the chain reaction there, okay? But temple was many things. See, when you went into the temple, we'll just call it the central part of town, from wherever you lived in town, and by the way, 10 blocks away would have been a long trek, the women folk did their trading, you did your tithing, you did your shopping, right? Maybe you had chickens and you wanted lamb, or maybe you had lamb and you wanted chickens. But you got to remember back then, a portion every week of what you were blessed with, grain, fish, chickens, eggs, whatever, a portion of that went to the temple. Okay? Went to the temple. Now, you do remember the act of Jesus going through the temple, running out the money changers. Now, you first should try to do the disconnect of why were money changers at the temple. Because, see, at that time, the temple was one and the same. Temple was church, temple was government, temple was taxation, temple was laws, etc., 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 etc. Do you get it? Now, here comes this guy. His name is Jesus. Now, a very interesting thing happened. This fellow came and said, you see this system? You see all those guys back there? They're fake. And by the way, we're not talking about animal sacrifice, much earlier in time. Let's stay right on it. We're at the temple, and we're at what happened at the temple, and we're with what Jesus did in the temple. You got to understand if you're going to understand what it is today. When Jesus came into this city center, he basically realized, shit, folks, you're working for the system. And the system is taxing the hell out of you. And these guys that are supposed to be your great leaders, freaking A, they're really just enriching themselves. They're not really using it for the good of the people. They're really just enriching themselves. And now these people believe they're untouchable. Now they think they can write laws. Think of the thousands of rabbinic laws there were. Now they think they can write laws, massive amounts of laws, to control you, and that everything's about them. Sound familiar? Okay. So we're going to swap a few things here. What you now know as the temple, or then it was the temple, was the courthouse, the church, and the mall, and the flea market, and the vegetable stand, and the livestock show. It was all housed there. And so these people were using God's house for their own gain. And all of a sudden, these people basically decided, I can decide your fate. Blasphemy, kill them. Sound familiar? We have countries to this day over in the Middle East. You can be convicted of blasphemy and beheaded for what you said. So you got to put it all into context. So here comes this guy. And he's basically saying, see this shit? That has nothing to do with God. Now, the people were listening to this. The people were listening to this guy who came in traveling, saying, you see all these guys lined up back here, taking shots at me, telling you I'm a grifter, telling you I'm bad, filling this stuff in your head. They're all fake. You are what's real, and you are what matters. And so, as this guy came in, call it moving through the Holy Spirit, and moved people's hearts, they began to realize, wow, it became about the temple. Wow, so many freaking laws for so many different things. Wow, and we have to get through these guys to get to God? Wow, and they tell us what we should believe? They tell us what's right and wrong? So this fellow Jesus won the minds of the people by saying, that's not God. And he did one very important change. Now, you got to understand this. It's going to sound theological. but actually it's geopolitical. What I'm about to say is it's going to sound theological, but it's actually geopolitical. Because these lawmakers were corrupt. These lawmakers were keeping concubines. These lawmakers were doing dastardly stuff. These lawmakers, these church people, were enriching themselves, not necessarily the people. And here's what he said that caused the shock around the world. You're free. You control your life. And you have a direct connection to that freedom because you yourself can talk directly to God. Now, that was the absolutely horrible thing he said. You see this building? You see these robes? You see these medals? You see these hats? You see all this trading shit? You've become trapped. It's you, and you have the ability, just like Abraham, you have the ability to dialogue with God. Because see, an interesting thing happened. Even if they were going backwards, even if they were a Kohanim, which is the descendants of Aaron, and in Judaism, a Cohen is a very, when you're from the line of Cohen, you probably know people named Cohen, right? That is a direct descendant of Aaron's tribe. Aaron were the keepers of the laws, meaning the keepers in the holy relics, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened is something kind of happened in there that, wow, we're kind of powerful. We can tell people what to do. That's mankind. And that's what happens to mankind. Okay? That's what happens to mankind. So mankind at that time had become corrupted. And so this guy walks in and say, fake media, fake media, fake media, fake bullshit, total crap, fake. You can't trust them. They're enriching themselves. They're filling their pockets and they're doing it off your back. Set yourself free. Right? Set yourself free. Now, that wasn't a theological statement. It ended up being a geopolitical statement. And isn't it interesting with all of this and this lesson? Fuck, the Pope just died. Come on, something's going on. And so what happened is he said, set yourself free, become responsible for yourself. You do not have to go through people to have a relationship with God. That is not what makes you a good person. What makes you a good person is by living right, living according to God's word. You understand what I'm saying? What makes kids a good person today? Oh, free Palestine, free Palestine. You see how they judge themselves? Yes, a whole young crop of kids. They're going to tell you, well, I'm right. You know, the Israel's bad, free Palestine. They literally think that that's the virtue to have. I'm a good person if I march. I'm a good person if it's against the system and I go throw bricks through windows and destroy things. That's okay, which is what happened back in Jesus' time. It became the Jesus or barbarous choice. Okay? And so now let's look at this person, and I'm going to take you through how this mirrors today, because, folks, history is repeating itself. No, somebody, and don't be ridiculous, somebody's going to get out and walk on water. Then you're already missing the point. We're looking at what I call the tale of two crowds. And what I've already told you is the crowd today is still the same. It's people, and it's the way people think and the way people can be moved. But the tools are different. So you had this guy that came out and he walked the earth without armies, without wealth, and without violence. He healed, he taught, He forgave. And the rich snobs that actually thought they controlled everything, he rebuked them. And he rebuked them with words, not with swords. He basically was setting the people free. If he had a chance and the ability to do it, he fed the hungry. He called on the ones that were forgotten to be blessed. He didn't seek a throne, right? And he basically told people, you've got to turn away from this darkness. You got to accept responsibility for your life, because some of the things that are being taught are dark and are controlling you. So what happened? What happened? They crucified him. Now, why did they crucify him? Why did they crucify him? Well, see, he got crucified literally not for a crime. That's why I tell you guys, and I'm just telling you to understand this discussion. If you've never watched Passion of the Christ because you think it's a theology movie, no. You literally need to watch Passion of the Christ and understand what we're going through right now. You have to understand that. So here's this fellow. And they're going to crucify him. Now, here's what, you ready for this? Because this should resonate with you. Why did they crucify him? Yes, it was foretold. Put that away. They crucified him for one very simple thing. They crucified him for exposing the entire system was built on power, appearances, and fear. See, without those guys, you're a sinner. You need me to be good. You need me to be blessed. You need me to tell you what to do. That system back then, same shit that goes on today, that system back then was built on fear, power, and appearances. And then what happened is this fellow said, wait a minute, I know you have law, but there's also mercy and understanding. That's number one. And then he said, you know what you're really doing, guys, with all these robes and everything? They're not because you're sacred. They're not because you're a divine lawgiver. You are fucking masking your greed through this thing called religion. People look to you by leadership, which is what you call, by the way, these people were elected to office. People are looking to you for leadership, and all of a sudden you think you have some divine powers, and you actually believe it, and now you're using religion. Now you're using the communication of the day. What was the communication of the day? Where did you go to hear your news and your media? Same temple. Where did you go to get your education? Same temple. That unholy trinity, media, academia, and government, was still in place there. And he basically said, you're covering your greed with these cloaks of religion. So all of a sudden, this guy's presence was two things. It was too disruptive, and he was too damn bright in many ways. His light was shining. People were realizing, holy shit, they'd never had a guy stand up to this church and everything. You see that? Fake news, fake news. See that shit? That's crap. They'd never experienced this before because they had a good ride. They had a good ride. And I'm going to bring it all full circle for you. We're going to talk about Elon. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about everything. Now, if you understand they were the media of the day, You understand the church was the media of the day, and the church told you what to think. It's akin to, oh, you're just transphobic. A boy can be a girl. They're really a girl. Do you follow what I'm saying? Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. And so during that time, because he had embarrassed the elite, because he had embarrassed the lawmakers, because he had embarrassed the people in power, and he shamed the people in power, saying, you are trying to rule people on fear. You put yourself into power. All of this is just a freaking appearance. And none of it's really true because you don't walk it. So they decide we're going to crucify him. Well, now you got this crowd. You've got a crowd that's listening to the church. That's academia. That's media. And they want to be considered what? Good with the church. Good with the media. Good with academia. We're enlightened. So what did the crowd do? Well, when the crowd was given a choice, because they were listening to the government, the media, the academia, which then was all rolled in one, the choice they made was to murder the Messiah. So they cried, give us Barabbas. Now, just so you understand, it was a Passover Jewish holiday, quote unquote, tradition that the Roman leader, now you've got to remember, and some people forget this, the Jewish people were conquered. You got to take that into context. The Romans had already come in, and the Romans telling you, you now do it our way, not your way, came in. There's no Christendom yet, right? There's no Christendom yet. Got to put that out of your mind. There were only people of the word, ancient books. And so, literally, the Romans come in and they take over everything all across the country. So now they're under Roman rule. And Rome just has to keep the peace because they cannot afford what? An insurrection. Yes, and it was called an insurrection in their time. So Pontius Pilate is like having to deal with this. He can't afford another insurrection. He's already put down several insurrections. They have control of the Jews because this was a Jewish society. So now when you take, I want to think like you. I want to be safe. I want to be chosen. I want to be okay. I want people to look like I'm going along. So now you got a double whammy. The double whammy is you want to please the church. You want to please these guys that dictate your life. And this guy 5 days earlier had been ushered into town as a hero because so many people had heard about him. It was like a mass freaking rally. Right? Then he comes in, he tells them the truth, kicks the money changers out. 3 days later, he's hanging on a cross. Now, I want you to understand the forces. Now the people are trying to conform to media, academia, right? And theology through the Jewish lens, because they're all Jews, and also at the same time when a Latin lens is coming into being, which is the Roman control. So basically said, no matter where you turn, you get your ass in trouble. And you don't want to get your ass in trouble. So to go along with everybody, not make waves, the people themselves called out. And the crowd chose Barbarus. You know what's really interesting? The crowd still chooses Barbarus to this day. See, Barbarus was a murderer. You have two sides to Barbarus. If you look at the Roman part of it, he was technically one of these rebellions, one of these insurrectionists that had been arrested. And yes, he had been convicted of crimes like murders, etc., whatever. But on this particular holiday, the Romans would allow them to set one free in exchange. So what was the crowd acting on? Their feelings. Nobody wanted to be shamed. Nobody wanted to be considered on the outside. And the church had just told you, that guy's bad. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. Hell, he's going to bring in Marxism and communism. He's a dictator. So the crowd, not wanting to be out, chose to have the very guy that was setting them free. They said, give us Barbarus. Now, just for a moment in time, and literally, they murdered their Messiah. When you think about this moment, the innocent was nailed to wood while the guilty walked free. It's not only a moment of divine destiny, because it had to happen, but it's a recorded history of human failure. See, today our crosses are not wooden. They're digital, cultural, and reputational. We no longer raise a man up on a hill. We cancel him from his platform. We no longer wash our hands with literal water to say we're clean. If you saw, and again, you need to watch the Passion of the Christ. When you see Pontius and the Roman, because his wife, Claudia, even said, you cannot do this to this man. The symbolism of him washing his hands there in front of Christ after they had flogged him so horribly was, I wash my hands free of this, which basically means you're throwing your hands up. I can't do anything, but I am not guilty. His blood's on your hands. See, Jesus was in front of a woke mob. And just like today, like I said, our crosses aren't wooden. They're digital. They're cultural. They're reputational. Look at what they do. We no longer raise a man up on a hill. You just got to cancel them from their platforms. We don't wash our hands with literal water. We do it with hashtags or faked outrage or even silent. We no longer shout, crucify him, but we still destroy the voices who dare to speak the inconvenient truth. What happens? We elevate the brash, the manipulative, and the violent, the modern Barbaruses who rage and plunder. We actually celebrate the criminal as if he entertains us. We elect the thief because they flatter us. We defend the vulgar if he says what we want to hear. But we exile the holy man who dares to speak of restraint and focus on what's right. It was still cancel culture. And at issue in this cancel culture, nothing's changed. See, speech is protected, but not welcome. Right now, we have a kid, a thug, who killed a person at a track meet. Why did one kid go to a track meet armed? Stabbed somebody, but the killer is held up, raised $500,000 for. See, nothing's changed, folks. And what's going on right now is we're really in this very interesting part of time where history is literally repeating itself. Now, somebody's not going to be crucified in the crucified way, right? You have to understand historically what President Trump was doing when he's on stage. You have to understand where we are. This is about mankind. And the same fear and shit is fed to us. See, the crowd has not changed at all. See, we can speak truth, and you do too. But what's the cost? Exile. Look at the UK. You basically say these guys are invading us. What do those guys do? Go rape little girls. What happens when you post on social media that we're being invaded? You go to prison for 18 months to 2 years. See, right now, the truth can still be spoken, but you're going to pay a price. People that are whistleblowers, right? That tell the truth of everything that's going on, or call for peace, get displaced by those that want a profitable war. The ones that actually defile humans and all of this trans stuff are literally profiting from that death. You're killing a little boy, telling him he can be a girl, or you're killing just women. So we still live in an age where people defend barbarous. And you know how sick this is? Anyone calling us out saying we've got to stop this shit. We got to get back to our foundations. We've got to get back to our roots. We've got to get back to what's just and right. You know what happens? We get mocked. But what do people love? People right now love revenge. They want revenge. Look at what they're doing to Tesla trucks. So that barbarous or history stuff, whether you like it or not, the crowd still decides. 25 years later, and our society still operates this way, can still be driven by mob mentality. Why? Because if you use fear and power to control, you can control the mob, and the mob does the dirty work. Right now, and I know you can agree with this, we are in a moment of what's called inverted values. The builders are the ones being torn down. The truth speakers are being silenced. Violent ideologies are protected under the banner of tolerance. Peaceful prayer, patriotic protest, and personal wealth are treated as crimes. I'm going to say that again. We still live in a moment of inverted values. Builders, the people that build things, are torn down. Truth speakers are silenced. Violent ideologies are protected, like cutting off a wanker to say you're a girl, under the banner of tolerance. But peaceful prayer, patriotic protest, if you created your wealth on your own versus stealing it from the people, you are vilified. See, what I'm trying to paint with this story is nothing's changed from the time Christ stood there. But the crowd still chooses barbarous. See, there was a man who told the truth through being out among the people, who called the broken to him and blessed them. He didn't raise armies. It was just the people. He didn't come to take power. He came to give power back to the people. He didn't come to take power. He came to give power to the people. But see, you got to understand that truth makes tyrants tremble. And so the leaders at the time basically said, he's dangerous. He's divisive. Where have you heard that? He's divisive. He speaks against the system. And so literally when the mob, the woke mob, was given a choice to free the teacher or to free the thief and the murderer, they freed the thief and the murderer. Those people today don't get crowned. You know, the people that are trying to speak truth, they don't get crowned with thorns. They get labeled what? Extremists, bigots, a threat to democracy. They get locked up for praying outside abortion clinics. They get locked up for speaking out at school board meetings. And the crowd screams, lock him up, he's dangerous, he's a threat to democracy. While across town, those people are burning buildings. The stores are looted. Police stations are burned. And the crowd that's doing that says, this is justice. This is free speech. And they arrest the truth tellers, but they excuse the arsonist. They demonize those that have faith, but celebrate the ones who riot. They shame the ones that pray and have faith, but they parade around with loud profanity. The innocent, that say, I don't want any part of this, are mocked. The violent are protected. The sacred is defiled. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Because it's that same moment in time. Do you want Jesus or Barbaros? It's the same choice once again. See, many times we think this is just politics, but it's actually the oldest story in the world. Guilty go free, righteous are punished. And the crowd always is able to find a reason to crucify the truth. True things. True things. If we look at what's going on in the UK right now, we got this lady, what was her name? Isabel Spruce, Isabel Von Spruce, got arrested 2 times for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. Another fellow, Sam Smith, same thing. Arrested for praying silently outside an abortion clinic. Except during the 2020 protests following George Floyd, 7,750 demonstrations across the country, most escalated into riots and looting, and it caused about $2 billion in damage. But that was what was held up. Portland, the protesters what? Nightly, the protesters fighting with law enforcement. The city was destroyed. Now, what's interesting is they said it was for justice. But if you actually look at it, if we go back and look at Jesus's time, and we go back to now, this is why I chose to do this right after Easter, is it's just an inversion of justice. It's just an inversion of justice. See, when society chooses Barbaros, a known criminal, versus somebody who only teaches truth, something's wrong. That moment, it's not about religion. And this is what's going on now. It's about a society that is morally upside down. And it fears virtue more than it fears violence. Isn't that weird? It fears virtue. It fears truth more than fearing violence. Why? Because people have fallen so far that they can get down into the dregs and, well, they're not guilty. And so they're going to go there because there is no punitive action to it. Right now, freaking, I'm talking right now. In fact, I got a little video for it. Let me show you. Let me go back here. Let me go here. Let me go here. Because this is so true. Think about what our lawmakers focus on and revere. Think about what our lawmakers focus on and revere. That's why I started at the beginning of the program. I'm going to go back and replay two things for you. I'm going to go back to another man they killed for telling the truth.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
We've been fighting this for a long time. I'm showing you we've been fighting it for 2,025 years. Nothing's changed. And it kind of goes back to my beginning of why the photo I showed you that I did is because the Jews didn't put Jesus to death. The government, the lawmakers, the academics, that unholy trinity, the media of the time put Jesus to death. Think about what we're dealing today. Our own lawmakers, as I told you, we're in this inversion, what they support. Yeah, we got lawmakers going advocating for the gangs. Has anything changed? No. Nothing's changed since these men gathered and it led to the crucifixion. Look at MS-13 that I just showed you. You know what the motto of MS-13 is? They have a literal motto. You know what their literal motto is? Kill, rape, control. That's their motto. Kill, rape, control. Still using fear, everything else, still using it nonstop. And where are they? They are shielded in sanctuary cities. And this is why I'm trying to get you to understand religion was law back then, was government, was media, was academia. MS-13 is protected by our current lawmakers. They're shielded in cities like New York and Los Angeles. 2017, they hacked a teenage girl to death with a bat and machete in Virginia. ICE went to deport the gang members, but activist judge blocked them on removals of humanitarian grounds. Right now, terrorist sympathizers are celebrated on college campuses under the guise of resistance. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas attacked that raped and burned and kidnapped Israeli citizens, yet students and faculty at academia at these schools cheered it as decolonization, not terrorism. At the same time, Elon Musk, a man who actually builds rockets, electric cars, satellites for rural communities, buys X in the name of free speech. He's vilified, saying, well, you open free speech and that's wrong, because he dares to stand outside the political script. Some of you still buy off, well, he's part of the cabal. He actually tells you government is too bloated, but what does government do? They try to destroy his contacts. He tries to say Doge is freedom in your pocket, but they try to tell you, nope, he's just trying to take money. He says you've got to speak freely about this and stand up for yourself. What does he get branded? A threat to democracy. We are in a moment of inverted values. That's the interesting thing. The same thing that happened back then was inverted values. And in all of this, the crowds haven't changed, folks. The crowds are the same. And in reality, builders are the ones that are torn down. True speakers are the ones that are silent. Violent ideologies are protected under the banner of tolerance. Peaceful prayer, patriotic protest, and personal wealth are treated as crimes. See, how all this thrives, just like it thrived back then, is this is a particular power of darkness. See, this isn't just about Elon Musk compared to MS-13. What's happening right now, and primarily in the West, we are caught in what's called the spirit of confusion. And that's what's going on. We are in the spirit of confusion. We are where light is called darkness and darkness is called light. That is the very same spirit that looked at Jesus and said, he is too disruptive, crucify him. And that is the same spirit that looked at Barbaras and said, he may be a killer, but at least he's not a threat to the system. At least he's not a threat to the system. Think about that. Freedom is not the threat, fear is. Speech is not violence, silence is. And this is all this spirit that we are in right now. It's been in for a long time. But it's called the spirit of confusion. And when you think about everything with elections right now, people try to tell you, oh, I'm for good elections and whatever and be it right. We got to get our elections right. You can't verify any of the work. Will be the same person who says, we've got to expand the Supreme Court and get more justices. The very thing the evil system wants. The very thing. You right now have somebody in election integrity that you trust, you follow. You can't audit their work. They can't defend their work. Now calling, well, we need 11 justices. Folks, we're in the midst of a war. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And you have a choice. You have to decide where you live. Freedom is not the threat. Fear is. People get afraid of being canceled, get afraid of not being liked, or you're not hip enough. And speech is not violence. Silence is. Folks, we've been here before, and we know how this ends. We know how this ends. See, I personally believe that when you have what we're going through right now, and this is the big battle, and this is why I tell you to get involved. When you have a nation that punishes innovation, that's what I stand for. I'm a futurist. I'm an inventor that punishes innovation but rewards destruction. That is a society that will not survive long. And isn't it ironically, that's their goal? See, they've got us all the way to this point. A society that treats virtue as a vice, vice as a virtue. And I want you to think about this because they're minor attracted people, lowering the standards for sexual relations. The society that treats vice and virtue in the inverse, meaning they'll say to have virtues is a vice, but to have the vice is a virtue. That's a society on the edge of judgment. That's a society on the edge of judgment. When throughout generations, look at the kids in college, in college and stuff, protesting Elon, and then look at the people on the streets, people in their 60s and 70s and older. When they cheer the barbarouses, that cross is going to come for that nation sooner or later. The moral of all of this story is, and why I'm just trying to bridge this divide to get people to look at it, is when you tear down the builders and you empower the destroyers, you got to realize, don't be surprised when there's nothing left to live in. We are in the Great Deception, and they do it by the Great Confusion. And that's why I asked you at the beginning of the program, don't treat this as a theology lesson. It's not. Don't treat what happened to Jesus as just a theology lesson. It's a geopolitical lesson, a damn lesson we're still learning today. And folks, we are still in trouble. And they still want to kill the man bringing it to you. And the same crowd wishes death on Elon or death on President Trump and justify death, justify assassination and death because vice has become a virtue. This is the truth of the world we live in. This is why we all must take the time to reconnect. We must understand the filter with which this is, and nothing has changed. We've been here before, and we know how it ends. Please, please please, please support my work on locals. And please share this truth. I love you all.
This crazy world is telling you your sons can be daughters and your daughters can be your sons. When will the madness stop? Never. So you have to decide, will you comply or defy? They tell us all, you will own nothing, eat bugs, and be happy. Is this why America's largest food processing plants and food supply plants keep burning down? Do you really think this is a coincidence? Of course not. The system is telling us right to our faces what they have planned for us. You have a choice. Comply or simply defy their plan for us all. Defy the system's plan and execute your own plan. Abundant, safe, secure natural food supply. Introducing the Food Forest Bible. This bestseller by Jovan Hutton Pulitzer is the single most complete, executable, easy-to-follow plan for sustainable, self-managing food production for self-sufficiency and food security. For the first time ever, a coffee table, heirloom quality full color book which unlocks the ancient secrets of creating a food forest. Imagine planting in a way which requires no digging, no pesticides, and creates massive ancient food abundance. No fooling. Food forests are the ancient secret to planning and planting once. And have your own Garden of Eden, which will feed your families for decade after decade. Buck the system. Buck the New World Order and order your very own copy of Jovan Hutton Pulitzer's Food Forest Bible. Learn how to create a sustainable, self-managing, natural food production for self-sufficiency and food security for your family. Side yard, small yard, backyard, backlot, or even lots of acres, the Food Forest Bible works for everyone. Order on Amazon, hardcover, softcover, or ebook. Don't comply. Expertly defy the system.